Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine you've been in an accident, could be a car crash, maybe a bad fall, just something sudden, jarring.
Right.
And then in the weeks, the months afterwards, you're not just dealing with the pain, the physical recovery, the emotional stress, which, I mean, that's tough enough.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
you're also looking at this pile of medical bills, maybe therapy costs, lost wages because you can't work. It just feels, well, incredibly overwhelming.
It really is. And what's fascinating here is how fast that money stress just adds another layer of difficulty. It's like
Right.
on top of trying to heal, you're suddenly facing this huge question mark about how you'll cover everything,
Yeah.
especially if someone else was, at fault.
Exactly. And trying to figure out what happens next, like legally, it can seem completely daunting. Where do you even begin?
Hmm.
So this deep dive, we're aiming to cut through some of that confusion. We're looking at insights from materials about personal injury law, specifically focusing on info concerning attorneys Jonathan Haskell and Matthew Dyer and their practice.
Yes, and the materials we looked at, they offer some really practical answers, answers to those basic questions anyone in that situation might have. Our mission here is basically to get a handle on some core parts of personal injury claims in Maryland, using the details shared by the law offices of Haskell and Dyer, LLC, as our guide.
And these materials, they're pretty specific about where this firm, Haskell and Dyer, focuses its practice, mentioning Anne Arundel, Calvert, Charles, St. Mary's, and Prince George's counties. So that's southern Maryland.
Right, down in southern Maryland.
Now, obviously, a lot of the legal ideas we'll talk about are probably statewide basics, but the specific angle, the insights we're digging into today, they come from that perspective, that source.
Precisely. It's about getting those fundamentals straight from this particular source of information.
All right, let's jump in. First big question. Do you even have a case? If you're injured, how do you know if the law can actually help? What did we learn from these materials about what makes a personal injury claim valid in Maryland?
Well, we learned that a valid claim usually pops up when someone's hurt because someone else was negligent, or maybe they did something wrong intentionally.
Negligent or intentional. Okay.
It's not just about getting hurt, it's how it happened. It has to tie back to what someone else did or, didn't do.
Got it. So it's linked to someone else's actions, but there are specific things you have to prove, right? It's not just automatic if you get hurt.
That's right. The materials, they spelled out 3 specific things you generally need to show. First, that the other person, the other party, owed you a duty of care.
Duty of care.
Yeah, basically a responsibility to act reasonably to avoid hurting others.
Okay. Like a driver has a duty to, follow the rules of the road, drive safely.
Exactly like that. That's a perfect example. Second, you've got to prove that they breached that duty, meaning they failed to act reasonably, they were careless, maybe reckless.
Uh-huh. So running a red light, maybe that's breaching the duty.
Yes, that could definitely be a breach. And then the third thing, and this is crucial, is proving that their breach directly caused the injury you suffered.
Directly caused it. Okay.
Your injury it really is. It gives you that foundation, those legal concepts to think about when you're looking at what happened to you.
Okay, so let's say you think, maybe my situation fits those 3 things. The next giant question, like we said up front, is the cost. Those medical bills are scary. How can you possibly afford a lawyer to sort this out? What did the material say about how payment works with this firm, Haskell and Dyer?
Yeah, this is a big one. The materials talked about something called a contingency fee basis for these kinds of cases, and it's really designed to tackle that exact worry about cost.
Contingency fee basis. Okay, break that down. For someone totally new to this, what does that actually mean for their bank account right now?
It means typically you don't pay your lawyer any fees up front, no hourly charges racking up while the case is going on.
No upfront money.
Right. The firm's payment, according to these materials, is contingent upon, meaning it depends on them getting a good result for you, a settlement or winning in court.
So wait, they only get paid if they actually win money for you?
That's the core idea, yeah. The materials put it very plainly. If we don't win your case, you owe us nothing.
Wow. Okay, that's huge, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially if you're already swamped with bills after an accident. Taking away that initial cost to get legal help, that feels like a really big deal.
It is. And the materials kind of framed it as, allowing people, victims, to seek justice without piling on more financial stress.
Yeah.
Plus, it means the firm's interests are directly lined up with yours. They want the best outcome for you because, well, that's how they get paid too.
That no fee unless we win thing.
Yeah, that's probably one of the most practical, maybe surprising details for someone worried sick about costs. It changes the whole game in terms of access.
It's a model really built to make getting that experienced help possible right when you need it most, no matter what your current bank balance looks like.
All right, let's shift gears a little. But this next point feels just as make or break. Is there a time limit? Like, for filing a personal injury lawsuit in Maryland, can you wait forever, or is there a clock ticking down? Okay, yeah, this is where it gets really interesting and urgent. If you miss this, it's a big problem. The materials talked about the statute of limitations.
Statute of limitations, right.
Which, for personal injury cases in Maryland, the general rule they mentioned is typically 3 years from the date of the injury.
3 years. Okay, on the surface, that sounds like maybe a decent amount of time, but I can totally see how 3 years could just vanish, especially when you're focused on getting better and dealing with everything else.
Absolutely. And the materials were really clear that while 3 years is the general window to actually start the lawsuit, there are certain exceptions and nuances. They mentioned things like cases involving kids, minors, or maybe certain types of injuries where the timeline might be different, so that clock isn't always the same.
Okay, so a general rule, but with asterisks, exceptions.
Right.
What's the bottom line, then, from the materials about this deadline? What's the advice?
The advice was really strong on this. It's crucial, they said, to consult with an attorney like those at Haskell and Dyer as soon as possible after your accident.
As soon as possible.
Yeah. And the reason? To ensure you don't miss this critical deadline. The implication is serious. If you miss whatever that specific deadline is for your case, you lose the right. Completely. The right to file the lawsuit and seek any compensation vanishes.
Whoa. Losing your right to even file, that really hammers home why acting fast is so important. Even within that 3 years, it's not just about being efficient, it's about literally keeping your legal options open.
Exactly. That emphasis in the materials on consulting as soon as possible. It tells you, figure out your specific deadline right away. Plus, gathering evidence and information while it's still fresh is always better.
Just for context, too, the materials also gave a sense of the types of personal injury cases where all these things apply, the duty, breach, causation, the contingency fees, the deadlines. They listed things like auto accidents, naturally, but also motorcycle accidents, dog bites, slip and falls.
Right. Under that premises liability umbrella.
Yeah, and semi-truck accidents, medical malpractice, sadly, nursing home abuse, and wrongful death cases.
That list, yeah, it just shows how many different ways, unfortunately, someone can get hurt because of what someone else did or didn't do. And it also gave a bit of background on the firm providing these insights, Haskell and Dyer, mentioning, I think, over 30 years combined experience.
Yeah, something like that.
And millions recovered for clients, describing their lawyers as, skilled trial attorneys ready to fight aggressively for their clients. Gives context to where this info comes from.
So what does this all mean for you if you're listening and you find yourself in this kind of tough spot? We've pulled out some key nuggets from these materials. First, understanding those 3 core things needed for a valid claim, duty, breach, causation.
The building blocks.
Second, how payment can actually work with that contingency fee model. No upfront cost. The lawyer only gets paid if they win for you.
Right, removing that barrier.
And third, that absolutely critical deadline, usually 3 years, the statute of limitations, and the really strong advice to act fast. Talk to someone ASAP.
Right. It means that just having this basic grasp, drawn from these materials related to attorneys Haskell and Dyer and their Southern Maryland practice, it can give you a starting point, some clarity when things feel really confusing and overwhelming.
Based on these materials, which really emphasize understanding your rights, acting fast because of that deadline, and also highlight that payment model designed to take away the initial financial risk. Here's something to think about. Consider how just knowing these few points, the basics of a claim, the fee structure, the deadline, could potentially change everything about how someone tackles that really difficult time after being injured by someone else. The materials often mention offering a free consultation. Think about how getting that initial guidance, maybe just having that first conversation based on the stuff we just talked about, could be the crucial first step. Just knowing the right questions to ask and knowing you need to ask them quickly within that time frame, that can make a huge difference in navigating the whole complex legal process.
Yeah, definitely. A little bit of knowledge, especially applied quickly, can indeed be really powerful in that situation.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope this exploration, based on the insights from the materials concerning the law offices of Haskell Dyer, LLC, has helped clear up some of the legal basics around personal injury claims here in Maryland.
Keep exploring, keep learning, folks.
Until next time.